in the first attack, we had 161 tankers airborne at one time. Oh, we don't have that number. And here's the kicker. They were refueling cells 5 deep, and they were doing it all lights out. Truly, my biggest concern in the black hole was we were going to suffer the greatest number of losses with mid-airs with the tank. Many years later, I had a good friend who was flying 111s who actually mentioned something to me that I hadn't thought about before, and that is, it was probably a good thing that everybody had their lights out. Joe, I don't know if that was your idea there. But because the review, by the way, we've done 200 miles south of the Iraqi border. It's like I'm going, why are you doing this lights out? But anyway, maybe it was because they didn't want to scare it. I thought that was a little bit of a losses. So, other part of putting this in context with Randy, it tags on to your question. Over the entire 43 days of the air campaign, we averaged 2,760 total sorties a day and 1,241 strike sorties a day. So for comparison, over the last 18 months, the U.S. has averaged 6 strike sorties a day in Syria. 6. All right, our first panelist is retired Major General Greg Feast. Major Feast dropped the first bomb of the war from an F-117. He flew out of Khamis Moshe Air Base in southern Saudi Arabia. His unit was a 415 TAC Fighter Squadron of the 37 TAC Fighter Wing in Tonopah, Nevada. He retired in 2012, and his last position was the Air Force Chief of Safety. Our second speaker is going to be Lieutenant General Greg Viscone. He's currently the Air Force Inspector General. Back then, he was Major Viscone. He was flying one of the first B-52 sorties that early morning of the 17th. He was in the 4300th Provisional Bomb Wing, 4301st Provisional Bomb Squadron, flying out of Diego Garcia. Our next panelist is retired Lieutenant General Bruce Orville Wright. He was the squadron commander of the 614 TAC Fighter Squadron Lucky Devils and the 401st Fighter Wing, flying Block 30 F-16s deployed from Torrejon, Spain to Doha International Airport in Qatar. Orville's last assignment was as the commander of 5th Air Force in Yokota Air Base, Japan, and he hung it up in 2008. And to wrap up our operator panel is retired Major General Ron R.J. Bath. Then Captain Bath was from the Reno, Nevada International Guard, and he flew the venerable RF-4C reconnaissance aircraft out of Sheikh Issa Air Base in Bahrain. RJ's last assignment on extended active duty was as the director of Air Force's Strategic Planning Shop, where he planned the 2006 Carter Hill Defense Review. So with that, gentlemen, I'd ask them each to tell a war story, and then we'll open it up to questions. Since you dropped the first bomb, we thought we'd let you go first. Whatever you want. You can come up here if you want. You can be down there.
So, I don't have any slides because I never learned how to make them, and I don't have a staff anymore. So. First, I want to thank General Deptula and the Mitchell Institute for hosting this event, and say it's a privilege to be up here in this panel with these combat warfighters sitting over here. I want to just tell you what we thought of General Deptula, those of us that flew the 117 that did the mission planning. We had a couple reps up in the black hole, but many times he would call us to Riyadh, and so we kind of called him Moses. We don't do this. Because we were being called to the mountain to meet the keeper of the holy plant. Those were always enlightening experiences. Okay, so you've heard strategic, you've heard operational by Colonel Ward and General Deptula. I am going to talk a little bit about the tactical side of it with the F-117. I've told the first sortie story so many times that I'm not going to tell it. But if you want to hear it, buy me a beer later tonight, I'll tell it. But I want to talk more about a typical sortie that flew to Baghdad. And we did this every night. And General Order, thank you very much when you decreed that only 117 would go downtown Baghdad because, well, it worked, but we weren't sure about it. Oh, and Colonel Martin brought up Ben Rich. I do want to thank him as well. I spent spent some time working at the Skunk Works over these last couple of years and met a lot of the engineers that are still there, and I'm standing up here because they did the right job. So I want to thank them. So Kamis Mouche was 1,000 miles from Baghdad. So every sortie was going to take 5 to 6 hours, and if you went north of Baghdad to the northern part of Iraq, it was probably 7 or 8 hours. And it was enlightening. But I want to tell a few things that probably some of you don't know. We would fly up on the tankers, and like General Gatula said, everything was calm out, blackout, and the only time we could talk to anybody was on the boom if we had the modified KC-135 that had the interphone system. And then we could talk to them and say hi, and they could tell us about all the AAA threats they could see, and we'd go, yeah, don't worry, you're not going there. Hopefully they were. So we would fly up to the southern border of Iraq, and we would make sure we were all stealthed up when we left the tanker, so that nobody knew we were departing, because they could see the tankers, obviously. So one of the things that we would do is suck in all the antennas. So once the antennas came in, we lost all TACAN and comm systems, so we could no longer talk to anybody or hear anybody. So once we departed that tanker and entered Iraq, then we were working off the air tasking order. And General Gatula and the planners had given us sanctuary altitudes to fly into Baghdad and out of Baghdad so that our air-to-air fighters would not shoot at us or chase us. Not that that ever happened, but it was rare. So we would approach Baghdad, and you saw Colonel Warden's little cartoon that showed a 117 with 3 bombs. I wish we had 3 bombs. We only had 2. And the weapon of choice in Baghdad was the GBU-27 because it was precise, it rarely failed, and it was somewhat of a bunker buster. It could vary itself and hit a deeper target. But many times we had to hit the same dimple twice to make the bomb get into the bunker, depending on what the target was. So we would have to reattack because the software on the airplane at the time for the GBU-27 required the weapons bay door to open past vertical and go more than 90 degrees, which meant you couldn't open both doors at the same time, so you're only going to drop one GBU-27 for pressing the pickle button. So we would have to reattack. Well, the Iraqis, we all know stealth worked. We never got hit, but the sky would light up when the first bomb would ever hit. Okay, so once the bomb hit, we would want to get out of that target area as fast as we can. And we learned that we had to leave the area for 7 minutes and they would stop shooting. Maybe because their gun barrels got hot, they ran out of ammo, I don't know, or they got tired of firing at us or firing at nothing, but it would take 7 minutes. So we would reattack and come back in 7 minutes later. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the GBU-27 required us to be below 10,000 feet up. And that, I won't use any words that you wouldn't use in front of me either. But that wasn't a good thing. So AAA, you know, a lot of it gets to 10,000 feet, some of it gets higher. But if you're not in the mid-20s, it looks like at night, it's all right there and it's all going to hit you. So that wasn't fine either, especially when there was weather, because when there's weather, everything looks closer and you get disoriented and all you see is flashes going around. And I learned during these missions, as did a lot of us, what AAA smells like, and what it sounds like, and what it looks like with the tracers. And these are things that you don't learn at Nellis during Red Flag. Smoky Sams are not Sams. I'll leave it at that. These missions were, we never felt safe, let me put it that way. You know, after the first week of flying missions, we realized that stealth technology worked and that it would take the lucky shot to hit us. We knew the SAMs could not guide on us. We saw a lot of SAMs launched. Only one time when a guy's weapons bay door did not shut right away did he see a SAM actually guiding at him until he got the bay door shut. So we knew the SAMs couldn't guide on us, but there was always going to be the lucky golden BB AAA shot that could hit us, especially when we're flying around below 10,000 feet. So, as you know, we flew 1,271 sorties, hit 50% of the targets, flew 2% of the missions. General Gatula has all this data. You've read about it. But what I really want to talk about now is what happened after we got home. this ties into the second offset that we're all hearing about today. I didn't know it was called that back then, but I understood precision guided munitions and stealth technology. Well, Secretary Rice called several of us to Nellis after Desert Storm and asked us, what do you need to help you in the next engagement? And we came up with a few things. And one of them was, we want to be able to talk in the radio when we're stealthed up. So technology, and some of you probably in this room, industry got involved. And when Allied Force happened, they had conformal antennas and they could talk in the radio during their entire missions. We also said, Joe Tula brought this up, we want to be able to drop weapons through weather, because a lot of times we had to go to alternate targets on the way home because we couldn't hit our primary targets because of weather, because of lasers. We weren't allowed, because of the ROE, we were not allowed to release a weapon unless we can actually see the target. And if we thought the weather was going to be a factor, we were still told to hold the weapon. So we asked Secretary Rice for that capability, which led to several years later JADA, and also the laser-guided, GPS-guided GBU series weapons. Another thing we asked for was we could only carry 2 bombs. We want to carry more. Well, the F-170 was retired before the small diameter bomb came about, but that led to the small diameter bomb. We asked for GPS. We didn't have GPS. We had INS. The way we updated our systems when we didn't have anything to update it unless we were using the infrared system once we were in enemy territory. So unless we could see update points and weather wasn't a factor, we couldn't update the INS. And sometimes we had to get to the target area without ever having updated after we entered Iraq. And then lastly, the most important thing, we asked that we be able to drop weapons above 10,000 feet. Flying around, like I said, down low was not fun. And so those that, they fixed the software, it was mostly an infrared system. The downward looking infrared system would gimbal out if we were above 10,000 feet. And so they did some software changes, and Allied Force around 25,000 instead of 10. So I'm going to leave it with that. I want to thank those of you in this room that helped come about those additions to the capabilities we had during Desert Storm, the second offset capabilities that I call them. I'm working for L3. I worked for Lockheed before that, and I know some of you in this room, and I look for you all to help with the third offset, which is going to lead to probably hypersonic directed energy and other technologies that will help the future warfighters so that they can go do the mission in Syria and other places with minimum casualties. Thank you very much.
So here's your bomber guy. I'm going to tell you why bomber guys liked to go low at that time a little bit. Take it from the inside of my skull. As a captain at the time in Strategic Air Command at Castle Air Force Base, which was the schoolhouse. What got me there? What took me through the first sortie? And what felt a little bit like to be added to the mix, which was a really great thing. My dad was a flexible waist gunner on a B-17 when he started his military career in 1945. Came back in to be a navigator on a B-29 for Korea. He trained pilots in pilot training. He flew A-26s and KC-97s and B-47s and that brand new KC-135. When I grew up, I remember him as a commander of tanks. I wanted to be a SAC train killer. It's all I wanted to do. I wanted to defend the nation from the communist horde. Mm-hmm. That was my dream. I got to live and dream. Wanted to be a bomber pilot because, as far as I knew, tankers couldn't actually kill them. Unless you crashed into them. Starting at D-Block. So some guy in the audience, Cy Johnson and Tony P. out in Denver, trained me up on how to be a professional airman. Okay? We didn't have a lot of professional airmen when I first arrived at 8 Mile Squadron.
Some people still were
July of 1990, we got a conventional mission at Castle. Until then, we weren't warfighters. We were just training crew members to be warfighters. We watched what Saddam Hussein did on the 2nd of August, and we knew we wouldn't be put in the game because they didn't bring B-52s in until later on if it really got bad. Saturday, and by the way, it's a quote my wife reminded me before I came out here. She said, remember, you told me that B-52s wouldn't go to war in this way. So I was wrong. I stood corrected on a Saturday night when a guy named Doc Proctor was talking to me on the phone. It's 11:30 at night. He's playing cards with him, and he says, "Greg, how you doing?" I said, "Doc, it's 11:30 on Saturday night. What are you up to right now?" I said, "Doc, it's none of your business." He said, "How's that?" I said, "She was really none of your business." And then he paused for a moment and he said, "Could you come in to train tomorrow morning?" By Monday morning, a free ship was leaving Castle to go to Loring because we didn't know how to deploy yet, but we were trained. We had the skill set to go pick up bombs. Landed, rainy, cold day. It's nice and warm in sunny California, but it was cold in Maine. Our aircraft were loaded, and we were then briefed on what we would be doing. Okay. What are we going to do? We're going to launch with a full load of weapons. You don't want to please close your ears because you probably didn't get this order. If on the way to Diego Garcia, the enemy horde comes across the line, you're going to swoop upon them and drop all these weapons. Swoop. It's a new tactic for B-52. What else they do is swoop. You figure it out, you'll have plenty of time on the fly. So we got airborne. First time I saw a KC-10, it looked like a mall all lit up at night. Get into Diego. And after a little bit of attrition, I became a flight captain. I was prepared to go fight because I was trained to be a professional airman. I knew how to handle my equipment, and I knew how to put a bomb on target on time. Didn't know anything else about what was about to happen. We could not even get a Mickey from AWACS. We didn't have GPS or night vision goggles. That all came to us, and Loring had it. So good thing we had 5 months to sit there and practice because that's what we did. We got a wonderful plan. But in that plan, they said, by the way, General Horner was briefed that on 9/1 we're going to lose a third of the bombers. So I was thinking maybe we should have a better plan than that. But for a bomber guy who's got the B-52 guy who's got the world's largest radar cross section, going low is good. And that was my happy place, right? That's what we trained to do because we were going to be alone and unafraid as we were going to go fight communists. So night one. I have a full instructor crew from Castle. Finest group of aviators. And the commander at the time didn't want to break up his Loring team and intermix it with a bunch of instructors. So I'm 8 years in a B-52 when I arrive. I know where every rivet is on a B-52. I know how to do all kinds of things with that airplane. What better time to go to war than an 8-year captain? And they made me a flight. 17 crews, 102 people being crewed. All by themselves, without worrying about their family, all focused to try to put a weapon on target. All of us who are aviators want to achieve that perfect sword. Every time we step to the jet, we want a perfect sword. And we beat each other up in the debrief because we never get it. If I had perfect sword, it was that. We had the opportunity to plan and train night one. Night one, we flew at 200 feet without anything on except our GPS and our radar output. It was moonless. We had a forward-looking infrared camera. It looked like daytime outside. We were told that the integrated air defense system would take us out. I did not want the Hawk sight or those pieces of AAA to shoot me down or my movement down. We struck much so, 47 minutes into the war, the airfield at Rodney Altitude was lit up like they had night training going on. I couldn't use my night vision goggles because it was so bright. At about 10 seconds before a B-52 flies over your head at very low altitude, you can hear it because we're not wearing suits on. And when those doors are open, you can really hear it because it tears the air. We were so close to the people operating on that flight line that I could see them stop. We climbed slightly to the altitude to release those weapons, and two B-52s went overhead. Two Strike Eagles took out all the hangarettes. Two British tornadoes ripped up the runway. In 7 minutes, the war was over. Our biggest threat that night, because of a fantastic plan, was egressing at low altitude over the Syrians. I am the product of a professional Air Force. Our airmen have to be reminded when they come in with missions to fly fight. I did not join an artist colony. I joined the Air Force to be part of the professional officers. My leadership, the way we're being educated, our exercises. You talk about exercises. Later on in the B2, we're going to go fight a red flag. This is going to be, we're going to mix up aluminum jets and stealth airplanes. So the lead unit was a light gray unit for week 1. We go into the fight day 1 in red flag the same way we always got to the fight. And those Strike Eagles, or those light grays, were leading the fight like they were told to. Instead of thinking about the stealth airplanes that they had. We were retreated. Even the stealth. Not the F-22s, but the B-2s. Second, we flipped it. F-22s wiped out all bandits. B-2s wiped out all the targets. Zero attrition. The women didn't even get fired. It's the way we think about war. What we learned is that our training matters. It's the quietest sortie I ever had. Those bombs look like precision-guided ordnance. Those craters on the high-speed taxiways were right in the middle, like we planned it. We didn't plan it, but it was right in the container. What we missed was the early introduction to that technology. The benefit of Populous. What we missed was the integration in those exercises that are so important for our. What we gained was real experience about how to fight. A marvelous day being in this town for the last 7 or 8 years after a lot of time overseas. There's a whole different combat operation that goes on day to day. And to have air power leaders in one room right here in Washington, D.C. talking about what we're talking about makes this day a win for sure. Thanks, Dave, for putting all this together. I appreciate the question asked about Dave's career development. I met Dave first time in 1978 when we were captains in the Officers Club at Kadena. And the discussion was pretty much focused on why the F-4 was a better air fighter than the F-15 that he was flying. I think we ended up with the conclusion that weasels, see the goldfish back there, weasels will always be first in and last out. That's how I hope we continue to develop airmen and officers around the world to serve our combat. Well, this is F-16 221. About 1987, it was our squadron flagship. As we deployed from Thor home with 24 F-16s to Qatar, Doha International Airport, Qatar. This airplane flew most of our combat missions and then continued to fly as an officer commander Ramstein in Operation Provide Comfort and its night flight. The point I'm trying to make here, they probably all already figured out, is this airplane still flies. The Alabama Guard flies this airplane in combat missions. It just went to Romania and back. If ever there was a time to recapitalize our bomber fire force structure, it's now. Most of the Air
This is the fighter force we had at Doha International, Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Out in the lead is a French Air Force F-1. French were at Doha International to augment the air defense forces for the Guttery and Leary Air Force, and they were terrific to work with. French detachment commander had a sign over his squadron office that said English only spoken here. And in November or December, prior to Desert Storm, he walked in one day with a book of information on Iraqi F-1s. He'd gone back to Paris on his own to get every bit of information he could. That book had everything about Iraqi F-1s, radar parameters, mortar, jamming capabilities. It was incredible. So after reviewing that, we sent it to the intelligence leadership and read on it. Just a great point about why our coalition and foreign allied partner operations and training there are so important. The Guttery and Leary Air Force flew F-1s and Hawks. They were very professional. We were able to train with them every day. They followed the rules of engagement. We eventually then escorted them to attack Iraqi targets in Kuwait. They had no previous air to ground experience, and we went with them to ensure they were not misidentified as Iraqi. A number of officers in that squadron went on to be air chiefs of the Guttery and Leary Air Force. Canadians also terrific friends and partners. We trained together. Unfortunately, their government did not let them fly combat missions for the last day of the war. We went over, took our entire bomb loader force, bombs, fuses, helped them load bombs on every F-18 they had. And they got to fly those friends of ours under one combat story. So obviously the point, the takeaway here, Dave asked me to offer up a few lessons learned. Some of these lessons are enduring lessons. I'm not sure we've learned some of them, but the enduring lessons certainly from this time together in Desert Shield and Desert Storm with our foreign partners and allies, that the training we have around the world that we continue at Red Flag are just essential to international security. We make great friends, lasting friends, and we learn a lot from each other. This is one of our Air Force airmen and survived to operate Mahir. I thought this was an important point to make. We were very capable in our survive to operate training, our readiness, our equipment. We were ready to take on the Warsaw Pact, so when we deployed to Scud rings, if you will, or deployed into the threat of Iraqi-launched Scuds, chemical, biological, radiological Scuds, we were ready. We were motivated, we were trained. We were certainly not in the least maybe respectful, but not afraid. First morning of Desert Storm, 17 January 91, we had 16 F-16s lined up on the ramp. A ramp full of great Americans, 16 crew chiefs, 16 pilots, and a Scud alert 10 minutes prior to launch. So what do? Well, you just try to get off the ground as quickly as you can. The ramp cleared off, people continued to put on their Kim gear. Pretty soon it was just 16 F-16s, 16 crew chiefs, and 16 pilots. I recommended my crew chief, he pull the cord and take cover, and he refused to. He said, we're not scared of these guys. They saluted all 16 crew chiefs just like they did every day as we taxied out. We launched, and not only did the Scuds not deter us, I think we're even more motivated to take the fight north to the end. Around the world today, I think we need to remember that forward deployed combat air forces are ready and capable to survive to operate a terrific, credible deterrence force, a responsive joint force that we need to remember is what I think gives us that deterrence posture, that real deterrence posture is so important in places like Osan, certainly in Southwest Asia today, and even in Japan, where we look the enemy in the eye and we're ready to continue to launch sorties no matter what the threat. This slide you'll have to look at a little bit, but I'll explain it to you. This is a map for our pilots on the afternoon mission of 19 January 1991, third day of the war. This is part of what was called Package Q, 50 plus F-16s from the 3D wing Hill, as well as our 16 F-16s from Torham. I just landed from leading a mission that morning, and as we conferred with our wing commander, Colonel Jerry Nelson, weapons officers, and we looked at this mission, we made the decision to press. Now, there's an important point I have to make here. General Warner and General Glosson made it very clear that if we at the tactical level, the squadron wing level, saw mission that didn't look right, we knocked it off, not have to go. So we made the decision to press. Electronic combat assets have been working very well up to that point. This was a target-rich environment. We were fired up to go do this. And as we launched and got into the area, it was really a matter of, with this large F-16 package, and for multiple reasons, there weren't enough electronic combat assets really to cover the entire mission. So our guys went in, hit the target. It was called the Dora Refinery. We were the first pilots to attack. Tico, Jeff Tice, Major Jeff Tice, as he came off target, saw an SA-3 go by, and he was pretty much on the edge of the fragment hole. So the SA-3 went off, damaged his airplane, flew a little bit further south, and then had to jump out. Captain Mike Roberts, MR, was speared essentially by an SA-6. I think both of these launches were optical launches, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We didn't know if either pilot was dead or alive. Landed that night, rounded everybody up, and again, a very important point to make is none of our guys, pilots, crew chiefs, flinched for a second. That night, someone put a sign over the ops door that said, "God bless Tico and MR." And the next morning, every pilot got up, put on their gear, slapped that door jam, and mounted up, and we feel the 16 lines ready to go to work again. I should also, I think, make the point that there was another part of this mission, and that was back at Toro. My wife Carrie then, with the flight surgeon and the chaplain, and the DO, made a visit to Batty Roberts and Cindy Tice's homes to tell them that their husbands had been shot down. And after that point, no further information. So the lesson I think here that I'd like to pass along, and I don't think this is yet a lesson learned, we have work to do, is empowered tactical level command control continues to be, I think, the secret sauce for combat operations. If we can bring the information technologies together that are out there, and synchronize ISR, dynamic targeting, electronic combat, and cyber, we will continue to be a decisive combat force. Again, information decentralized to the tactical level of command control to the cockpit. The information's out there, it's not yet where we need to be. I would challenge every U.S. government leader at every level and every counterpart they have in the defense industry to work on this opportunity if you really want to achieve the third offset that we've been talking about. It's about empowering tactical level command control. A little bit of a war story here. This is open source reporting. We've already talked about the lack of EDA. We actually found some on the third day of the war that had to do with attacking the Dora Refinery. A number of our pilots hit right on target, as you can see there. Reporting from on the ground, very accurate delivery of our dumb bombs, if you will, Mark 84s coming off F-16s. The F-16 system at that time was INS and computer assisted, very accurate. On the range, you could expect 5 to 10 foot bombs all the time. What we did find, though, in Desert Shield training is that, as General Horner directed us, as we started dropping higher at higher altitudes, 15 to 25,000 feet, much above about 20, then the Mach number started to get out of control, and you're dropping supersonic bombs. Well, the system was designed to go up to about 0.92. So we made the decision, our decision, to drop bombs in the block about 15 to 20,000 feet so their bombs could be more accurate. There was a debate across F-16 units in the theater about dropping higher or lower and what was the best thing to do. We made the decision to drop what we thought our bombs would be the most accurate. Unfortunately, that probably led to our guys being optically acquired by the Iraqis on the 19th of January without electronic combat assets and recovery. And that probably led to the two of our guys, the MR and T, being shot down. Well, this is a picture of Tent City, but I'd like to make a couple points here. One is we had the world's greatest ambassador. The U.S. Ambassador Mark Hambley was a career Foreign Service diplomat, spoke fluent Arabic, and not only that, he was with us. He and his wife Patricia, I think, had all of us 30 or 40 at the time over at his house during the 7 or 8 months we were in Gutter. He was just outstanding. And by the way, he convinced General Schwarzkopf that he could serve as a leader. So he was our friend. And oh, by the way, he made us all junior masters, I think. No civil incidents downtown, and nobody wanted to have the beer cut off. So, a great leader. With Ambassador Hambley is General Lawson, came to visit a number of Colonel Jerry Nelson. What a terrific provisional wing commander, now retired. The other point, though, I'd like to make about Tent City is this is a warfighting community. About half a block walking distance to the right of this picture is our bomb dump. We built it, we put berms around it, we decided where it was going to be, and it was right where it needed to be, close to us and close to the flight line. Because the flight line is about half a block to the left of Tent City. We were right where we wanted to be to take the fight. All of it. We had a heck of a party when Jeff Tice and Mike Roberts came home, back to Torah home after being recovered from Baghdad. Short trip to the United States and back to Torah home. Jeff just retired as a captain from American Airlines. And Mike Roberts on the left side there, being held by Jerry Nelson, retired as a wing commander of Ohio F-16 International Guard Unit. And by the way, his caddy's son Drew was born while Mike was there. I just also offer that we just had a heck of a party again, 16th of January in Austin, Texas, hosted by this is amazing, the Adjutant General for the state of Texas, Major General John Nichols, terrific fighter pilot. He led the mission on 19th of January. We couldn't have a better American. Your governor thinks so too. I couldn't get off the stage without talking about General Horner. And everybody says a lot about General Horner. There's one command action he took that's very memorable to all of us. At the end of Desert Storm, he went to every unit across the AOR, his AOR, and visited with the pilots. We didn't know what he was going to say to us. He walked in, told us to sit down. I don't think he said sit down, shut up, but he was told us to sit down. And we go, okay, what now? General Horner made 2 points. One was, none of us in Desert Storm were heroes. Not a one of us. It took an entire Air Force, most of the entire Air Force, to liberate Kuwait and make Desert Storm a success. And if you found any of us in the Nelson Bar or wherever bragging about ourselves, we're going to personally kick our ass. I think that's cool. The second thing he told us was, your mission now is to go home, be the best husband, the best father you can possibly be, and make your family whole, put your family back together. That's your number one. Thanks, Boss, for your leadership. Thanks for your enduring guidance for Air Force, I think, and for life. And again, Dave, thanks for putting this all together. It's an honor to be here with all of you. What a great bunch of airmen. Thanks again.
Hey, thank you very much to my brother, Dave, who has been probably one of my closest friends. I thank you for the honor to be here. First of all, when Dave called me, he said that, hey, would you come and they were going to have General Mulder here, and he couldn't make it. He said, would you fill in? And I said, well, what do you expect me to do? And he said, try not to piss anybody off. Tell a couple of war stories. Don't go over 10 minutes. And then try and say something astute. So I said, okay, well, I'll do that. I got on the airplane yesterday and I thought, all right, what am I going to say? So I was thinking about what this whole thing about Desert Storm really meant and really what it means today. And you got to remember that before Desert Storm, I was a guard guy. I'm the guard token guy up here. And I spent my 20 years before Desert Storm at 500 feet and 540 knots in an RF-4 and an RF-101. In the real world, I've been defending the unjustly accused as a public defender in a criminal trial there. And so all of a sudden, my world of 500 feet, a stopwatch, and a map, and I'm sent over as the Avalon guy to set up the reconnaissance element in the 35th TAC Fighter Wing there at Shakiza. Well, the other thing you got to remember is that the Guard was flying around in their RF-4s with A9s, but the Air Force didn't have A9s on first. And so I got there, and I'll never forget getting called in and they said, you know, you gotta be kidding us. A bunch of refugees from that are running around with missiles in the Middle East. Who's shitting who? And I said, well, I mean, this is what we're trained to do. And they go, well, you're not trained to do that anymore. You're not going to run around at 500 feet. You're going to be up there in the altitude. And we're taking your missiles from you. And by God, they did. Well, along comes the Marine Corps, and you know, the Guard, and its only way of doing things. We went over and we borrowed some missiles from the Marines. We're going to put them on the airplane. And I remember getting called into the wing commander's office, and General Horner sent a 1-star over to Sheikh Giza, who called me in, and I remember he had tan boots and I had black boots. And he said, if you even think about putting those missiles on, I'm going to court-martial you and the entire Guard. I said, okay, well, we can understand that. We understand court-martial. So as a result of that, we gave up our missiles. And we became a part of the Air Force. And that was a struggle for us to begin with. But I can remember that first morning. I remember listening to what the gentleman up here said. They said, you know, there was all of these airplanes. And I remember I went out very, very early that morning. I think we launched at about 5 o'clock. And I was on the first wave with a bunch of Spangdahlem and George weasels. And we were the 2 RF-4 guys with this pack of weasels. And we went up there, and I still remember as the sun kind of came up, there was just this sea of airplanes, a sea of tankers. And I'd never seen anything like that. I'd been to Red Flag, I'd been flying, I'd never seen anything like that. I was just fascinated by it. And it was almost a kind of a surreal thing. The other thing that happened was, I remember going in there, and because the fighter guys were shooting the harm, they wanted the recce guys to turn off all of their radars. And so they said, all right, before we do this, we will say Magnum, and you turn your radars off. Okay, so we're going in there, and I'll never forget, there's a guy from Spang, he was from Alabama, and his name was Mark something, and he had that southern drawl. And before this, we'd been around with the 35th guys from Georgia and all, and they showed us this harm missile, how much it cost, $250,000 a missile. And I'll never forget, he was kind of out there on the wing, and he said, Magnum, turned everything on, and all of a sudden, down comes the missile, away it goes. And he says, kind of like that, down through the clouds. He goes, well, there goes a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Turn the radars back on, he goes, Magnum. Turn them off again, and here comes the second one, he says, and the pool and the cabana to go with it. So that was my first day. And the other thing, I'd never been shot at. I mean, I'd been shot at in Portland, but I'd never been shot at in the air. And I remember my backseater is now the Adjutant General of the state of Nevada, General Bill Burks. And he and I've been crewed together for 16 years. We were there, and I remember these 2 missiles coming through the clouds. And I looked at them, and I thought, why are they shooting at? And the other thing I remember was Bill Burks saying, hey, we've never flown with the pot before. And he did something, and all of a sudden the missile went. And it went way, way up, and it exploded in this giant big thing of shrapnel way, way up, and he went, wow, is that cool? So, those are my war stories. The one more thing about it is when you bring the Guard to the fight, you bring the community to the fight. And it wasn't the first day, but about the 6th or 7th day, I'm there, and I'm kind of an old man now, and I'm going to lead 2 guys on a mission up around north of Basra. And then we're gonna kind of swing back and get some targets and come back. And I got a Nevada Highway Patrolman flying the airplane, and in his backseat is another lawyer, and in my backseat is a history teacher. There we are, we're pressing along, and the history teacher's his first mission. Then he goes, "Oh, God, sir, there, look, over the left, over the left." And I said, where? And he says, the left. So I think maybe there's some of that. So I pull a hard brake, the poor guy out of my windows. So I said, "What is it? Say, tell me what it is." And he says, it's over there on the left, it's over there on the left. And I said, "What is it?" And he says, "It's amazing, it's amazing. I can see the gardens of Babylon." That's a history teacher in the backseat. All right, so the last thing I want to do now is kind of reflect on why we're here today and what we're doing. And I think that post Operation Desert Storm, the nation had an epiphany. And that epiphany was something that could be measured on the television. It could be measured by everyone in the nation. And it could be measured on what happened with the planning and everything that went into it as an order of magnitude that they had never seen before. And what I'm going to tell you about is we're here today to discuss what I call the A word. The A word is that politically incorrect term that nobody else wants to talk about when it comes to the word air power. The A word is another term for what I will call unjointness. It's an anti-Coldwater Nichols. It's the politically incorrect term that is thrown at us whenever we want to have discussions like this. If you use the A term, you are land phobic, you're sea phobic, you're akin to a heretic or a psycho. And I ask who's to blame for that, and I guess what I will say is that it's a politically correct system that has started to focus on how you measure what I call the A word. And the way we measure it is we measure it in terms of dollars and resources. And so I guess the takeaway that I'm going to come out of here with, and this is maybe not all that astute data, and maybe it's pissing people off, but the thing that I'm going to say is that Desert Storm probably proved that no good deed goes unpunished. Because we were so successful, because that campaign was so successful, we have since been fighting for resources and will probably continue to do so for a long, long time. The one true success I think that has come about out of it is when I think back about the fact that I was this guard recruit that was there. Today, my guard counterparts are so much integrated as part of the force structure that we weren't at that time. And so today, anytime the Air Force goes forward, it goes forward with both the Guard and Reserve. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, they have trained that level. They have trained all of those folks to the same level. And that's the success story. The second piece of it, though, goes back to the resources. And that's because there is a savings there. So with that in mind, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. If I said anything wrong, so be it on the card.
Wow, was that good or what? Just two quick comments. It's interesting, and I didn't know what my brother Ron was going to say, but think about it. You realize that there is no DoD official sanctioned event commemorating Desert Storm this year. And along the lines, I'll just throw this out for some of you to think about. The last 18 months in Operation Inherent Resolve, the only means of force application has been with air power. Who's the commander of the JTF? 3-star Army Corps Commander. Twice in a row. And it looks like we're gonna have a third one too. So, all right, how about Q&A? Any questions for these gentlemen? Yes, sir, Otto.
Auto Fresh and CPOC magazine, one thing that, B-52 pilot, the night before the ground war started, I was laying in the sand just south of the border waiting to go in with the Marines, and we would see 3 sets of lights go overhead. Just before they passed us, they'd turn out the lights. 10, 15 minutes later, we would get this magic finger massage, from the 52s and dropping their load on the Republican ground forces. And I remember feeling sorry, for the time. But in a previous life, I was a bombardier in carrier-based Navy aircraft. And in the early days of Vietnam, we lost pellets pulling the wings off their airplanes every time they said they called SAM. And one time that General Briscoe, you said that you were confident that they couldn't track you and you weren't worried about the SAMs. That's a big leap, from what we had in the early days. So talk about that. Have you been trained, to see the handle SAMs? Nobody else is talk about SAMs.
No, it's a great question. So when you come out of low altitude structure, you go high. And after night 3, we're all high. The B-52s, we transition high-low on night 3. Down below us, and by the way, for everybody who shot Arm or drove an EF-111 or flew cap for me or was a tanker crew member, the bomber can get there all by themselves, but the odds are that we wouldn't have come home. What was happening beneath us in that fight, in the sprinklers that you saw on CNN and the SAMs that you saw being shot into the air, that was all being defended down beneath us. And we knew that if we used our own ECM well, if we trusted our suppression package and stayed on our line, that the plan was there to deconflict us. One night on the rocket fuel plant. 2, they were shooting at us. The suppression package couldn't manage the number of SAMs they had, and lead and 3 each had a GPS, and 2 was out there maneuvering. Sorry about the number 2's bombs, but we were bound and determined once we turned in from that IP that we were going to stay on track and release those weapons. When that SAM came up over the top and it's not moving in your windscreen and you're looking at it and you think, if we don't do something, it's going to hit us and we're just going to run into that missile. Only once did we have to maneuver the formation, come out of plane because of the professionalism of the packages. So we were the beneficiary of a great plan and a bunch of warriors all around us who were fighting the fight for us. By the way, these days, the fight's a lot more high-tech, right? So that technology edge, as we moved, when I went to Baghdad in a B-2, that's different, right? I had the advantage of stealth and precision that night. And my wingman could go somewhere else and service other targets while I dropped 8,500 pounders on a target that was given to us by General Mosley. So, and they weren't